Hi, and welcome to Longship Gaming. Today we have, finally, the fourth expansion to Marvel Champions, Sinister Motives, featuring Spider-Man, Ghost Spider, and a whole bunch of new villains. Very excited to get this one on the table. Got it in yesterday, got everything sleeved up, organized, put away. And I thought, well, what's the best way to celebrate this release? And I thought we would do a deck design video. Just as a baseline, I haven't read any of the spoilers leading up to the release at this point. Neither for the heroes, their cards, nor the villains, nor the scenarios, any of it. I'm going in blind. I do have some knowledge now about what some of the scenarios are about, just from sleeving everything up, but nothing really in depth. And of course, what Spider-Man and Ghost Spider's decks involve, because again, I had to when I was designing their decks. I plan to play through all of the scenarios, not as a campaign, on Expert, and alternating between Spider-Man and Ghost Spider. So Spider-Man gets 3, Ghost Spider gets 2. At least that's the plan at the moment. I tore apart the pre-cons right away. Didn't even look at them or review them. I never used them anyway, and I didn't want them to influence what my design would be in the end. I went with Spider-Man Aggression instead of Justice, but I stuck with Protection for Ghost Spider. I tried to stay on theme. I wanted to use a lot of the new cards, especially a lot of the allies. We'll see if they are good or not, but that's the way it is, going in blind. And I didn't duplicate any cards except for the ones, of course, like the resource cards that I would need between the two decks. So I wouldn't have to split them up while I was playing, just to get through the scenarios as quickly as possible. I'll be back in a moment, and we'll look at the deck design for Spider-Man Miles Morales. Be right back. All right, let's have a look at our Spider-Man Miles Morales Aggression deck. Spider-Man is definitely one of those heroes that has abilities that I really like. His Venom Blast and Spider Camouflage abilities, so when triggering the special, do 2 damage to an enemy, stun that enemy. And Spider Camouflage special gives Spider-Man a tough status card and confuse an enemy. These are very, very potent abilities for not doing much other than just playing the game, since he has so many cards that actually are useful in triggering that ability. He's got a great baseline stat of 2, 2, and 2 for his basic abilities, which I think has always been the sweet spot in this game. I tend to prefer playing heroes who have that and aren't as skewed or weak in certain areas. Since this is an aggression deck, I wanted to really leverage off Miles' ability to continually stun and confuse the enemy. So for his event cards, just to make sure there's even more stun going along and allowing us to draw a lot of cards, we have one of my favorite combinations, although pricey. You can't really argue too much with Dropkick, so being able to stun and draw a card, and press the advantage to follow up on that with 2 more damage and to draw a card. For 1, it's pretty solid. It's kind of magical Christmas land. You can get that off in 1 turn, but still, I have had it happen with other heroes. Clobber's just a good old all-rounder to be able to get that all-important might resource back in your hand, or strength resource, and chase them down. Just a little bit extra help to get rid of some thwart, since we're going to be concentrating mostly on doing damage. To support this, of course, we have Martial Prowess for that all-important resource for strength, and Assault Train. To a couple of Assault Trains to keep getting these great event cards back into our deck, so we're not burning through them as quickly as usual. Other Spider-Man Girl might be good and fun inclusion. Unfortunately, because she's an older card, she's not a web warrior. But when you play Spider-Girl from your hand, stun and confuse a minion. Just in case in the set, there are very powerful minions that we can leverage a lot of Spider-Man's extra damage and effects against. And of course, Power of Aggression to pay for those cards. For our basic cards, we have our Energy, Genius, and Strength, as usual. Again, just a good old Mockingbird in there, just to get as many stuns out as possible. And just to be on theme, so Ghost Spider, and this version of Spider-Man, Hobie Brown, the rock Spider-Man that I first encountered in the PS4 game. I know nothing about the character, but I think it looks hilarious. These are mostly in here for fun and thematic purposes. Web of Life and Destiny. So to ignore the card's resource cost if your identity has a Web Warrior trait, which of course we do. In response, after a Web Warrior ally leaves play, choose a player. That player draws a card. So I can imagine our Web Warrior friends going in and out of play quite frequently. We can support that with Across the Spiderverse. Exhaust a Web Warrior card you control. Search your discard pile for a Web Warrior ally and put it into play. Then choose a player. That player may spend 3 resources of any type to repeat this ability. So I can see a sort of a Magical Christmas scenario that a combination of Across the Spiderverse and Web of Life and Destiny keep getting Hobie and Gwen back into play quite frequently. Helicarrier just to pay for costs, and I could not include this card. So Plan B, I mean, it's Spider-Ham, I think biting a guy. I don't know. It kind of looks like a duffel bag. Might be somebody's leg or arm. Who knows? I didn't know one of his things was to bite people, but what do I know? So to play under any player's control, max 1 per player, hero action, exhaust Plan B, and discard 1 random card from your hand, deal 2 damage to an enemy. A good little, poke, 2 damage here or there could be enough to finish off an enemy or to ping off a tough. I guess we'll have to see. I won't go into too much depth about his core deck. Just that he certainly does have a number of ways like Defense Mechanism and Power Within to trigger his specials, which are very important. He's got more cards, so Web Shot, which is doing damage and triggering Venom Blast, and Swing In. There's 2 of those to remove threat and then trigger Spider Camouflage. I really think he's a very good control character. And once we have control of the enemy, then we can just continue to do a lot of damage to them. So his first up opponent will be Sandman. And we'll see how that turns out. Next, we'll be on to Ghost Spider, Gwen Stacy. Be right back. Now we're going to have a look at our Ghost Spider protection deck. Really want to leverage her very high def as much as possible. 1 thwart, 2 attack, 3 def. Low thwart may prove to be a problem, but we shall see. But the amount of times that she may be able to stand back up and activate in a turn based on her dizzying reflexes. So her response is after you resolve an interrupt or responsibility on an event, ready Ghost Spider limit once per phase. So there's a good chance she can stand herself back up multiple times. At least twice, possibly, based on defense cards or anything else she plays at the event. I'll be interested to see how many times I can get her to activate in a given turn. So for our protection cards, again, trying to stay on theme. So we have Silk, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and Spider UK. And for our, what we've done here is gone for a very high number of upgrades, relatively cheap upgrades to leverage on the fact that she has such a high defense. So we've taken Unflappable to draw cards, armored vest to get her def up to 4. Flow like water to do damage against an enemy every time I play a defense card to deal 1 damage. This is pretty good because it doesn't ever need to be exhausted. It just happens every time. Hard to ignore. After your hero defends against an attack and takes no damage, exhaust hard to ignore and remove 1 threat from the main scheme. Electrostatic armor. After you defend against an attack, deal 1 damage to the attacking character. So hopefully that will stack nicely with flow like water. And nerves of steel, of course, to pay for these defense events. We have 3 additional supports, defensive trainings to get our protection events, of which there are quite a few, back into our hand. And one thing that would really mess her up is to lose any activations due to confuse or stun. So what we want is Night Nurse to get those off of us for free. For our events, we have new card, Jump Flip, Hero Interrupt Defense. When you would take any amount of damage, prevent 2 of that damage. If you pay for this card using an energy resource, remove 2 threat from the main scheme. So this is well paired with things like Desperate Defense. So when the hero defends against an attack, it gets +2 def for that attack. If you take no damage from that attack, ready your hero. So another way to get her to stand back up. Even if there is any damage left over, this might be able to get rid of it. So she can be quite hardy, I think, in the end. Counterpunch. After your hero defends against an enemy attack, deal damage to that enemy equal to your hero's attack. It's likely never going to go above 2, but it's a good little poke. And of course, tackle. If you're going to take protection, I always say just take tackle. There's 2 of them in here. If you're paying with a strength resource, deal 3 damage to the enemy, but at a very baseline level, you're stunning them. The fewer attacks that she actually has to defend against, the better. But when she does, she'll be able to hit back and draw cards off of them. So I anticipate this is going to be a much slower deck. So for our resources, of course, we have 2 power protections and our usual energy, genius, and strength. So yeah, she should be able to leverage off in her main deck. She's got quite powerful, her Ghost Kick, hero response attack after Ghost Spider uses a basic power, deal 6 damage to the enemy. And that's coupled very well with the Phantom Flip. After Ghost Spider uses the basic power, remove 5 threat from a scheme. Max 1 per basic power use. So, I mean, these are big swings, big numbers. So 6 and 5 off of a 2-cost card, but that relies on her using one of her basic abilities. That's why we need to keep her standing up as much as possible, to do as much as possible per turn as she can. Yeah, so I look forward to seeing how agile she really is. I think she will be able to defend with very little effort. I imagine games are going to go a bit slower with her, but on turns when you can leverage her big 6 power kick, but hell, if you combine it with her regular attack, that's 8 on an attack, which is about as good as, say, core set Spider-Man's swinging web kick, which is the kind of gold standard for a character's basic deck damage card. So I will probably face her off, I believe, with Venom is the second scenario. And we'll see how she does in that. Decks will be up on the Marvel Champions database. Links will be in the description below. Let me know what you think of this deck design video. If you want more in-depth analysis, more of my thoughts, where it can be improved, what you've designed for these 2 characters and how successful they've been, please let me know in the comments. Description below will have the decks on the database, And please, if you like this content, give me a like, subscribe, hit the bell notification for new content, and we will see you in the Spiderverse.